So my lab is working on a vibrating structures. So one of the example is guitar. So as you can see that here strings are there. It will produce sound. Okay. And you with this experiment you can see your sound kind of, but yeah, you can see here the laser is there. It fall on this mirror. It will give you visualization to your sound basically. Means you can see your sound kind of. And it's in this experiment we'll see how the anchor loss is there. So you can see that the same lens are there, like red ones are having same length. If you'll vibrate this one, the only same lens are vibrating, means some kind of a energy is dissipating through this anchor.
So we are demonstrating here air dissipation. So this is a tuning for with 320 hertz natural frequency. So you can see the particles are. So this vibration energy can dissipate through air, and we are working on how to reduce this air dissipation loss.
Hello guys, you can see there is a in-house assembled pyroelectric detector which can detect the fires very easily. So if I want to first demonstrate how it works, and then I will brief you about the science behind this. You can see there is a fire when I am lighting the fire in front of this detector. So it detects that fire and gives the signal to the there is a sensing element we had developed here, and then further we process with the amplifying circuit and assembled inside this small packaging, and it will work for the multiple purposes like fire detection systems.
दो मिनट में सिर्फ मैगी नहीं क्रिस्टल्स भी बनते हैं. जस्ट लाइक यू मेक आइस विद इन योर फ्रीजर, यू कैन ऑल्सो मेक शुगर क्रिस्टल्स और सोडियम एसिडेट क्रिस्टल्स, जस्ट लाइक आई शो यू हाउ. So if you dissolve sugar into water and heat the solution up, more amount of sugar can be dissolved in water at higher temperature. And if you cool it down, this solution is now a supersaturated solution. So if you want to nucleate your sugars out of it, you need to give it a high energy, just like shown in this case. Hi guys, so our demo is basically how we are interfacing how our neural nervous system works, how our neurons actually interact with each other. So we have few experiments regarding that. First we have the motor adaptation. So basically whatever things we do in our actual life and everything, our brain gets adapted to the situations. We learn from things, we practice something and then we know about it. It is all about that. We also have illusions like tactile illusion, how our skin actually gets confused, how we actually touch and we may not be actually touching the thing which we are thinking it to be. Second, we have some way of showing how our muscle activity and everything actually works, how the electrical signals are generated and how we actually can control neuroprosthetic devices out of it. And we can see the spiking activity also here. And do visit our stall and hope you get some good experience out of it.
So if you see, this thing are nothing but a nano robots, okay? A swarm of nano robots. So what we are doing here, this is our magnetic field, this is the magnetic field setup, and this is our joystick, okay? You can see, you can move this nano robot. You also can try, this is our joystick. By putting this joystick, you see, by pressing the key of the joystick, you can move these nano robots.
Okay, so this demo is dancing Rangoli. So this setup is all about vibration and resonance. So as you can see, when we vibrate one 1D string with a certain frequency, it forms patterns with nodes and antinodes. So nodes are the points which are most stable and antinodes are the unstable. So if we vibrate this plate with certain frequency, we can see same kind of nodes and antinodes here also. So as you can see, as we have applied a frequency, there are some antinodes formed, and the rangolis vibrate away from the antinodes to the nodes, and this forms a pattern. Now this is that we can see like this is visible, and the frequency is in like hertz and kilohertz. But in our lab, we have certain structures that we make, and this is like 1/100th of your hair size. So those structures are used in like say pressure sensor, gas sensors, in
So you guys know what diamond is made up of, right?
Yep.
Diamond is made up of carbon. Do you know what coal is made up of? Coal. What is coal made up of? Carbon, right? So if carbon is there in both materials, what gives them like these drastically different properties? Diamond is completely transparent and it's very hard, whereas coal is like it's used as a fuel. So what makes them completely different? So something similar. It's called crystal structure. So if you imagine these red balls as carbon atoms, in coal it's a completely random arrangement. The atoms don't have any symmetric arrangement, which renders the properties of coal. Whereas in diamond, you have a perfectly crystalline arrangement of perfectly symmetric arrangement of atoms, which something like this. So you see, it's a perfectly symmetric, right? So this renders carbon the properties of diamond. So even though this is the same atom, this is the way in which it arranges itself, which renders the properties of diamond or coal. So what we have here is copper sulfate single crystal. So what that means is, just like how carbon has arranged itself in very symmetric manner to form diamond, so we have copper sulfate molecules here which have arranged themselves in a perfectly symmetric manner to form copper sulfate single crystal. So there are close to there are more than there are many millions of atoms which have arranged themselves in a perfectly symmetric manner. Whereas here the arrangement is not so symmetric. So you see, right, that there are crystals like this which have grown all over. So what makes a crystal like this? What makes a crystal like this? Like, how do we achieve? Let's say I want to make a single crystal of any material. How do I do that?
Any ideas?
So what do we use? So we use the properties of thermodynamics. So we have something called as growth levers, pressure, temperature, and the tendency of these atoms which try to come closer, which is called as free energy. So we use these three levers to control the atoms which are coming. Let's say, so if the atoms are as large as these balls, you can try and pick them and then keep them in a perfectly symmetric manner. But then you can't do that with actual atoms, right? So which is why we use thermodynamics. We use thermodynamics to make these single crystalline materials. So
Hi, so what we have here is superconducting levitation, right? So what do you think this is? Just by looking at it, what do you think this is? They're magnets, right? So there's nothing special about magnets in particular. Like, you put materials on top of it, nothing happens. But when you mix a magnet with this, so this is YbCO. So yttrium, barium, copper, and oxygen. It's the short form of the element. It's not the elemental name. So that's a high temp. So basically YbCO under 80 Kelvin is a superconductor, right? So as soon as it goes below 80 Kelvin, it becomes something called a superconductor. So if you put a magnetic field through a diamagnet, it'll oppose it. So YbCO is a perfect diamagnet. It will have zero field inside. So if you put it on top of magnets, it floats. It'll flow. It'll always levitate.
We saw another explanation.
And as soon as it goes, as the temperature goes above 80 Kelvin, it'll fall. It stops being superconducting.
So this is the team Lamla Prep for with FIB. So we have modeled the focused ion beam method using a hair dryer as ion gun and spray foam as the etching material. So first of all, the first step is to coat the top with a platinum layer. Here platinum is symbolized by this black color. Once you have the platinum deposited, this will protect the top layer. So the first step is basically etching. For etching, you want to go to a very high angle and then take the ion gun and then turn it on. Here you can see the actual process of etching.
So what happens is, this solar cell takes sunlight and converts it into electricity, and you see there is a small motor here. So that electricity powers this motor and your car runs. Okay, so this is how solar works. This is a very basic explanation of how solar works and powers your vehicles or other devices and stuff. Is it interesting? Who wants to run a car without touching it? Okay, we'll start from here. I'll need 2 people at a time to have a competition. These 2 are the tracks. And you have to hold a car each and you have to leave it when I say 3. Okay?
So this is acoustic levitator. We are levitating small stuff using sound waves. So these are small speakers working at 40 kilohertz. On the both side, you can see the speakers are generating 40 kilohertz sound waves, and it is creating a sine wave, which is a standing wave pattern, and it creates nodes and antinodes. So wherever the nodes are, nodes means where the pressure is lowest. So particle tends to stay there. So you can see only at specific points we can levitate stuff. Okay. So wherever the nodes are, the pressure is low and we can trap stuff. Imagine this is antinode, or we can say high sound pressure. And this is also high sound pressure. My hands are high sound pressure. We are trapping stuff like this way. Okay. And this is where the net force is 0. And this is what we call a trapping force. And that is how we are trapping the small particles.
A light source here, and then we split it into 2 equal parts, and we reflect it so that it will add up. So basically what we're doing is that we're adding light. Okay. Now what will happen if we add light? If you add 2 lights, what will happen? It will become more bright or less bright. So what I have here is that I have blocked one path. Okay. So basically we are getting one light. Okay. What will happen if I open this part? Basically I'll add light. See what we got here? We get dark and bright bands. So you can see it from here also. So basically light plus light can also give dark. Now why does that happen? Yeah. So something that we have seen already is that water waves. Okay. So basically if there is one wave in water, it goes like this. If there are 2 waves, what will happen? They'll add up and they'll cancel. So similarly in light it will happen. If their light are waves, they'll add up and they will cancel. So you will get this bright and bright and dark bands. Now why this happens? Yeah, because it's a wave. If you align them correctly, they can add up or they can cancel each other. Now what will happen if they shift a little bit? So this dark one will become bright and this bright one will become dark. So they starts moving. So what will happen is that if I start tapping it, okay, not even in the box, if I start tapping the table, so it's sensitive to small vibrations. So using this, I can detect very small changes that are happening, very small vibrations. Now, on a related note, so what people have done with that? You can do a lot of stuff here. One very different thing that people have done is that this is something called gravity waves. When 2 heavy body collide, they send some ripples, okay, in gravity, we call gravity waves, which are very faint. It's very hard for us to detect that. Of course, we can't feel it because what's happening is basically stretch and strain in space. Now, how can we detect this small vibration? So, using this same technique. So, you make this interferometer very large, then you can detect very small changes happening. Why? Because when this gravity waves, this fluctuation pass, they stretch one side and compress another side. So you get this light, when the light are aligned together, they starts moving a little bit. And then you can see these small changes happening, this fluctuation. And by this gravity waves, detecting gravity waves, you can see something that has happened very far away, which means very long back. So using this, basically because light is a wave and you can use this interference, yeah, adding light you can also get dark and all that. Using this, you can detect something that has happened very long back also, very sensitive. So that's the whole idea.
Cantilever, there is a laser shining onto the cantilever. The laser hits this mirror, goes in, and inside we have a camera here. So that camera, so if you look from here, you can see the laser spot inside.
Yeah.
And that spot is right here. Okay, and if the cantilever moves up, the spot will also move up. And if it moves down, the spot will also move. And then we are doing a scan over the surface.
Right.
And this surface represents atoms. And sorry, I forgot to tell, there is a magnet at the tips. That magnet is feeling an attractive force on the ball bearings. Whenever it's on top of a ball bearing, it will feel more force. And when it's in a valley, it will feel less force. Based on that, we are keeping a track of the y coordinate of the laser spot, and that is a 2D image. The live image is there. It's full of noise.
These are metal oxide based gas sensors. It will work on the chemiresistive principle. So by application of various chemical reaction, the current in the material will increase or decrease. So this type of materials or this type of sensors will work at a elevated temperature. So around like 200 degrees Celsius. So like a room temperature, for room temperature application, we wanted some sensors that should work properly. So we have here like a 64 array of different gas sensors. So it will detect the 64 different gases at the same time. So these are like one dot represent the one sensor. So these are like a 2D materials, quantum dots, graphene, and metal oxide. All kinds of material are embedded in it. So based on that, it will detect the different gases. So one material will be selective towards the one particular gases. So like that, it will detect 64 different gases. So here we have commercialized gas sensors. So it will be useful for disease analysis, or we can detect the various diseases at early stage. So using your mouth hygiene or mouth using our just breath analysis, we can actually check the diseases. So based on that, it will detect the various gases. And if you have some H2S gas present in your breath, obviously you don't have very good oral hygiene. So like that, diabetes is there. So and diarrhea. So different diseases we can detect at early stage, and you can cure after that. So this is like a main application of these gas sensors. And then after that, air quality index we can check using these sensors. So you can place these sensors in various locations, and you can check the quality, like air quality, using this way. If the sensors, like suppose in air, some harmful gases are present, ammonia, H2S, then like air quality is not good in that area. So you can do the we can take the this early, we can detect these gases, and we can cure this thing by using various parameters, as this thing is there. Hello, so I am Karthik. I am MTech student at Science Department, and here I am demonstrating the application of bipolar junction transistors as a switch. So if I make some sound here in the switch, the LEDs are turning on. If I so I am applying, I'm giving a electrical signal to the bipolar junction transistor, and based on that it is turning on, and my LEDs are also turning on. And here I have another device which does same kind of thing, but here I am giving a electrical signal in form of music. So as you can see, more LEDs are glowing based on the volume. So if I turn off the music, all LEDs are turned off.
I'm going to demonstrate how the sensitivity chiral molecules use. We are going to polarize it, and how we are going to use chiral molecules in the diagnosis system. So do you know the components of the electrical material, like light? So light contains both electric field and the magnetic field, which is perpendicular to each other. When we take the normal light, it is not polarized in the all direction. But this is how it is. It is not, electrical components are there in every direction. When we put a one optical filter or the polarizer, what will happen? All the electrical components will align to a single direction like this. So then we will get a single polarized light. So then we are taking this single polarized, this is called as polarization, and we are taking this polarized light. So now consider a material. Now this material, take a mirror image of this. This is called as reflection of that. So when we take this reflected image and the real image, we can get a real image again after superimposing it. But now take a chiral material. Take your hand and take a reflection of that. So what will happen? Can you able to superimpose it? So right hand is the reflection of left hand, right? We can't superimpose it each other. So now you have this polarized light already. Then take that polarized light and put one chiral molecule in the path of that polarized light. So here we are putting, this is the polarized light. here we are putting one chiral molecule. So it is going to change the polarization of the material again. So that we are demonstrating it in the demo. So this is our normal light source, which is not polarized. It has electrical component in the all the direction. Now we are sending it through a polarizer. So when we see this thing, here we can see only one component at the top of the system. So this is normally polarized light. This whole system is the chiral molecular system. When the polarized light passes through a chiral system, it's going to give the polarization of the, it is going to change the polarization. Why we need all these things? Because when we look at the human body mostly made up of the chiral molecules. It has chiral biomarkers inside that. For example, amino acid or organic acids like that. So these kind of chiral molecules we can use to detect different diseases like cancer and brain tumor or kidneys like that. This kind of chiral system can be used for diagnosing different diseases. This is all about our demonstration.
Our photonic research laboratory, and we play with photons. So here in this structure, which guides the light in what direction it has to move to in order to reach from one point to another point. Okay. So if you see, the light which was supposed to travel in a straight path is now forced to travel in a circle. If you see, see, so the light is traveling in the circular path and then reaching here. So technically what we are doing is we are asking the light, we are telling light in what direction you have to move in order to reach from one place to another place, right? So if I show you the demo, this is something that we tried to write PRL here. If you notice, light which always wanted to travel in a straight path now is being forced to travel in a trajectory where we want it to be traveling in PRL sort of, right? Something now, I don't want my devices to be very big, room size or maybe large big size, not portable, looks ugly. So we jump to something known as on-chip photonics. Okay, on-chip photonics. If I show you, structures are here. If you see these structures, these are again waveguide structures. Light will be input from here, it will travel from here, and it will come out from this. Okay, this is the fiber ferrule from which light will be input, and then light will travel here and it will come out from there. Okay, so if I take it from a very fundamental level in an intuitive manner, what I'm trying to say is that since I can control the direction of light, I can control where it has to reach. Now, if I can embed some important information on the light, technically that means that I am able to transfer that data from one position to another position, correct?
So, yes, our work, like our lab work on nanopore. So nanopore are basically nanometer size hole. So what we do, we try to pass DNA through nanopores. So DNA has 4 type of bases, A, T, G, C. So every base will have different size, right? A, like suppose DNA is passing through nanopore, A will have some blockade, T will have some like other blockade levels. So we try to detect those current levels that we get from nanopore, right? So this is the analogous to nanopore what we have made. If this is nanopore, then what we have done, we have represented these Legos as DNA. So there are 4 colors, and 4 colors corresponds to 4 bases of DNA. Okay, so when we pass DNA through nanopore, so now we are passing through it. You can see here, there are different current levels that we are getting. Based upon these current levels, we can detect the sequence, and based upon this sequence, we can map it to which organism it belongs to. We can see that. That's how we do the experiments. Here it is detecting the colors, but in actual thing, ATGC will have different size. So we like see how they are changing the currents. There will be some baseline and we'll get different current levels according to the size and charge of those bases.